Hey, Kryptonite Dragon here, joined by Dante Zero. This is the PodStation from TrophiesonPSN. We are back on the air, our typical Sunday podcast. It's been a couple weeks. How have we managed to miss so many when we did like 5 podcasts this week?
I was going to say we've been super busy this week, haven't we? Podcast galore.
Yes. Crazy number of podcasts. How's that happen? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. So.
Well, I was going to say, at least we can't be guilty of not producing original content, so.
And today we're what? Broadcasting from the future?
Yes. We'll go into that in a bit more depth in a bit.
So what's going on around the site? Let me start off by saying there's some white ad banners that are blank showing up all over the place. People are, what's this about? We have gone through the process, Google AdSense. We're just getting started. That's what they serve up to us until we are finally approved, and they put ads right through there in those locations. Can't do anything about it. Can't do anything about the colors. Pretty much has to just sit there like that until the ads come through. So stand by, be patient. Nothing's broke. It's supposed to look like that. That's how it works. That's about it. We're doing a lot of work in the background. I've been doing a lot of work on, getting some other stuff for the site. And I've been doing that through the use of another site that helps with site development. So kind of doing a little bit of stuff in the background. And programmers are still working hard. And, of course, it's about that time of the year. Everyone's on breaks and getting ready for exams. And here in the U.S.,
I've got like 3 coming up. It's crazy.
People here in the U.S. are, it's a holiday weekend, so shout out to all the soldiers that fight hard for us. It's kind of a dry period right now this time of year every year. But good luck with everyone's exams, and everyone enjoy your extended weekend here in the U.S. And hopefully we'll get back to semi-normal.
Here in the UK, it's half term, so.
Half term, is that like mid-term? That's what we call it here.
Yeah.
Exam time.
Still got another couple of. I don't know why they do that though. It's like you have half term and then it's like you go back to school or college and then you do like 4 weeks, be it exams or whatever, and then it's like summer break, and it's like why? What was the point of going back for 4 weeks?
Yeah, kids here are going to be off for summer real quick next couple of weeks. I mean, this is. Like they wanted to go swimming yesterday. First day for the pool. And it was still like 60 degrees. That's Fahrenheit.
The wrong kind of temperature.
The right kind of temperature for us. So it's it's crazy time of year. They're starting to get right now, like younger kids in school, they don't get homework or anything. They know they're pretty much done with school. They just have to show up and say hi and play around, and they don't get homework assignments and all that, which is just weird. You think they'd use every bit of school.
To be 12 again.
Oh, I know. 12, 13, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Spend your summer just playing video games.
I never did that. Did you do that?
Did you not? Yeah, I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I was sad enough to do that until I discovered beer.
That's one thing I can say I did not do. I did not stay home and play video games over the summer. The summer for me, I was always swimming and playing sports outside and staying out late, getting into trouble.
Yeah, but dude, I live 8 miles away from anywhere. Do you know what I mean? It's like impossible to get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't know.
You'd have to do something pretty drastic, I'll tell you that. But it was pretty much video games during the summer. I did go out and ride the bike, but and stuff like I did do the odd, stuff outside. And as I say, video games took a backseat when I discovered beer at like 15.
15.
So yeah.
Yeah, I did that too. I did summer from a break from college and everything. I spent the entire summer drinking beer, eating pizza, and playing frisbee. And that is the absolute truth. That's all I did every day for the entire summer. Pizza, beer, frisbee. So, yeah. Well, the old days.
Yeah, to be young again.
So, yeah, what do you got for PSN Pick of the Week?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really get much time to play stuff this week for numerous different reasons. Revision for exams, obviously we had a lot of stuff to do podcast-wise. Well, we were three shows in total during the week, something like that.
Yeah.
And then obviously helping out doing other stuff and, helping some of the news team brush up their skills and stuff. So I literally only managed to get round to playing something slightly different today, which you heard me playing before we came live on air, and that was a PSV game called Men's Room Mayhem.
Oh yeah.
So I'm actually going to run with that because it's actually a pretty fun game.
Okay.
The concept of it is it's like a micromanagement sim. If you've ever played Flight Control HD or something like that, you know exactly what you're getting with Men's Room Mayhem. And the concept is you basically got to draw lines on the Vita screen and get the blokes in the men's room to the toilet, and then get them to wash their hands and out the exit without them causing punch-ups in the middle of the men's room. So basically, if the two guys come too close together when you're trying to direct them to certain parts of the bathroom, they'll actually start a fight. And each time you complete a set amount of waves, which usually lasts about a minute 10 seconds, you then got to rub the screen to clean the toilets for the next wave of men coming in. So it's just a fun little quirky title, to be honest with you.
So is it like they cross streams and stuff in there, or what? What's the whole point of the bathroom setting? Just add some humor to it.
Yeah, it's pretty much just to add some humour to it, and it works really well. If I'm honest, you get guys that come in and they've got a little counter next to them that if you don't get them to the toilet quick enough, they're going to pee themselves, and you've got ones that come in that want to go into the stalls and stuff. So, and as I say, it's essentially just a micromanagement fun little game like that. It's dead cheap as well. I think it's about I think I paid something like £1.99 for it off the store for my Vita, and to be honest with you, it's quite a nice game. I've been having a lot of fun with it, especially when they get into fights and stuff. That's kind of funny, because then you just have like three dudes lined up, emptying their tanks into the urinals, and then you got like 3 or 4 fights going on around the bathroom and stuff. It's pretty cool. So yeah, if you've got a PSV, definitely check out Men's Room Mayhem. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how fun and entertaining it actually is.
Okay.
Given the subject matter anyway.
Just the way you described that, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. I can't remember if there is a PS3 version, but I imagine at some point there probably will be. So, it'd be worth picking up if it came out on PS3 for like a couple of dollars or something like that. Definitely worth the time investment into.
Now, is this like the farming sim where someone's playing it and they're actually farming? Do you think somewhere there's a guy that's responsible for cleaning the urinals, and he's got his Vita with him, and he's
Yeah, you can just imagine that washroom attendant sat there with their Vita waiting for customers to come in, and they're actually playing Men's Room Mayhem. That'd be pretty funny if that was true. Now you can manage your washroom while you manage the washroom.
Exactly. That's what's weird about some of these sim games. You think about it, it's like things that you don't really want to do in real life. Yeah, I mean, just regular Sims. Think about it, like you go into work and stuff, and you're collecting your paycheck, and you're, cooking and stuff, and you're like, what?
Well, strangely enough, there's actually a PC indie game that I'd kind of like to see to make the transition, which is is actually a micromanagement. It's done very much in the 8-bit style of Retro City Rampage and those kinds of games, and it's actually to manage a video game firm, and you can build your own games in the game itself, and then you've got to sell them and publish them, and you've got to deal with all the marketing and stuff like that, and people hacking and faults with it and stuff. So if they could bring that across, that would be pretty fun to bring across to PS Vita and certainly PS3. I really would like to see that sort of indie game come across.
So
I
that
can't
just
remember what it's called though.
this whole discussion just sparked something about that related to our main topic today. So.
Really?
You ready to break it out?
Yeah, I just hadn't realised I'd segued. That's all.
Well, we didn't really, but I had an epiphany. So here we are. We're broadcasting from the future now.
Yes.
And the year is 2020. And we are going to describe the landscape for everyone. We're going to talk about what the next generation console. It's about to be announced to E3, June 10th, 2020. And we're going to talk about the next iteration of the PlayStation, Vita, all that. So
we probably just confuse people with it. What we probably should just say is that, you know, with the next generation literally on the horizon, we wondered about the next generation after this generation.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
You know, we're already people are already like looking at what's coming, but it's the perfect time to look past that and say, what's next after what's next? So I mean, we're already on to. You know, you're always going to have something else that you're adding to make the next generation of console worthy of getting. Yeah. If it's just more RAM and it's like the same kind of thing, you know.
Well, we know. I was going to say we know with PS3. I mean, they pretty much started development on the PS4 pretty much after the PS3 released. So you know, it wouldn't be surprising if this holiday the PS4 comes out and they're already racking their brains about what's next.
Yeah, there's some guy in a room somewhere and he's like, boss comes in, what do you got for the PS5? We need to know.
Do you think at that point they'll actually drop the numbers?
You know, PlayStation, I'm thinking no. I'm thinking they keep it.
Really? I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that after PS4 that we'll actually get some kind of sub name or something to it.
I don't know, because they've had this idea about the PlayStation going in front of Vita and stuff. So they would probably, for handhelds and things, they'd probably have another iteration of the name. It probably wouldn't be the Vita 2. It'd probably be the PlayStation something else.
Yeah. Well, as Squirrels just pointed out, and I was just going to actually mention this myself as well, which is I think Orbis actually works quite well for this generation, this coming generation. I don't understand why they didn't stick with it, because obviously you've got the Vita, which means life. You've got Orbis, which is like the circle of life. Put those two things together in an ecosystem, and it all kind of makes sense. And plus, it rolls off the tongue nicely. I'm going home to fire up my Orbis. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It doesn't sound too far-fetched as opposed to, I'm going home and firing up my Durango. Excuse me, you're what? Do you know what I mean?
Touch what? Young man, that's a private thing.
So, well, I was gonna say, I mean, we're already seeing glimpses of the future as it is at the moment anyway. I don't know if you know too much about it, but obviously there's that experimental technology, the Oculus Rift.
No, I don't know anything about it.
It's essentially the new version of VR that's being worked on by ID Software.
Is that the glasses?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I do know about that. I just
the big fat glasses as opposed to something like Google Glass or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is actual glasses that you wear and it brings up information and stuff. But yeah, developers seem really excited for that Oculus Rift, and I wonder if that's one avenue of taking it further. I mean, I know Steam have expressed extreme interest in that. We still don't even know if it's going to become a consumer product. But do you think VR's probably taking it a bit too far at all? Can
No,
you imagine in
I don't.
2020 that we'll all go home and put on our headsets and
Yes, I
be
do.
engrossed in it?
Yes. And I'll tell you, I think that there's a key element here, and that is right now glasses are what drive most of the technology with 3D television. So I don't necessarily think it'll be something like VR in your room as much as you'll have the ability to have things that'll start to come out on that. So in other words, I'm saying like, okay, you watch your 3D TV, but then your glasses can also double for like now I want to play the latest VR game and it's going to display stuff in my living room. Kind of like Move or Connect. It's limited and it can't do everything. Okay, as exciting as that technology is, it's going to have new games and stuff come out, but it's not going to be like every game's going to use that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I think that VR technology, let's face it, we don't want everything in our face. We don't want like our living room to be the setting of what's going on. And to think that they're going to project a whole entire battlefield and stuff, and you can't see your couch,
and then
I don't really believe that.
Around,
but I would certainly say if there's a game where you're interacting with something and you had a virtual reality image of it projected in your glasses, so it looks like it's on your living room floor. Yeah, I could buy that.
See, I don't know, I'm skeptical of the whole Oculus Rift thing because of the VR stuff. I mean, I remember, this is going back at least 12, 13 years, standing in a computer shop, and they had I think it was for like one of the Doom games, I think it was, and they had like a VR headset that you could try out.
Yep.
And, I remember knocking things over in the store because, you've got this massive fat red thing on top of your head, but you couldn't see where you were going, and so you've got to control it somehow. And obviously I was wandering around and stuff, and as I say, knocking things over, and I thought back then, it's pretty cool, but would I want to do that every day? Probably not.
Uh-huh.
And as a hardcore gamer, that's that's kind of important. That if you're going to embrace technology, it's got to be something that you can easily do on a daily basis. And I don't think Oculus Rift is the answer. I'm not saying that it's not going to be there in 7 years' time. I think it probably will be a more I think the problem is in 7 years' time we're still going to be talking about the potential of it. I don't think we'll actually see that kind of thing materialise, if I'm honest. I think what we may be looking at is, in 7 years' time, and we talk about the next Xboxes, Wii's, or PlayStations, I think we're really actually going to be looking at embracing the start of holographic TV technology. Yeah. I mean, we've already seen Sony showcase that, and I think that could be the interesting way forward. We laughed at the whole Xbox One with, the interactive TV side of things, and I think what we'll actually start to see is not consoles themselves in the traditional sense, but interactive living rooms. You've seen Philips and Panasonic already doing that with like glasses, actual glass mirrors in bathrooms and stuff that can display the news. And things while you're brushing your teeth and all those kinds of things. And I think you'll actually start to see that come out of places like the bathroom and the bedroom into the living room, where, essentially you might, instead of having a traditional telly, you might have a projector, a four-way projector in your living room, and you then just thrown into the game that kind of way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, my brother's actually got something like that with a mirror that does like a clock or something like that. But I mean, the thing here is like, one of the key pieces of this is trying to figure out which technology is going to bring what, because you're starting to get some overlap. Because like, for example, the to go back to it again, the Xbox One, that failed release that happened a few years ago, that Xbox One, the last generation, which caused Microsoft to get out of the console business. It started because they created all this technology, but then a lot of smart TVs and stuff started having the same kind of features for what they were trying to do.
I actually think it's the other way around. That smart TVs came out. The smart TVs have been around for a number of years.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Microsoft looked at that and it should have been the other way around, really. Microsoft should have been inventing it first and paving the way, and unfortunately, as we know, they've kind of failed in that respect. But
Yeah. So I mean, you gotta look and think. Is VR, the concept of VR, virtual reality, does that mean glasses? Does that mean a TV couldn't do it? Does that mean a console couldn't do it somehow other way? Because I'm reminded, like VR, one of the things about it is having those big, heavy, bulky glasses.
yeah.
It's a visual effect. Does that have to come from those glasses? Do you have something that could track your eyes? Do you have something that could project something from a TV or a console?
Well, see, that's why I think VR is kind of dead in some respect, because of the equipment side of things. I think, when I said about the interactive living room, i.e. you could, I don't know, say voice command your projector will then, do a 360-degree image of, say, you being in a forest, and then let's just say, obviously, the holographic technology is, kicking off at that point. You mix the holographic technology with, AR, the augmented reality stuff, which is already, in full swing with devices like the PS Vita and stuff. Today, imagine that in 7 years with the augmented reality stuff, and then putting it into a fully interactive living room, and you've got the potential. People are probably going to laugh when I say this, but you've got the potential to have like a Star Trek kind of holodeck. But the reality is, while you may be laughing, we're not actually that far away from the technology to do that. And it wouldn't surprise me if, in 7 years' time, in the year 2020, that we're actually, when we're talking about next generation consoles, you won't necessarily be buying a traditional machine, but you'll be buying a full setup that allows you to do those kinds of things.
Yeah. Huh. You know what they need to do?
God.
This is one of those, and I hate to say it. They need to tie it in with porn, and it'll advance like 20 times as fast.
Holographic porn, yeah. Fantastic.
Porn holodeck.
Yeah.
It's designed. 2 weeks later, it's all done. It's designed. It's ready to go.
Yeah, it'd certainly increase the marketability of it, wouldn't it?
Oh.
But no, I mean, you do have a point there. We often laugh about making the porn references, but the strangest thing is that porn actually drives a lot of technological innovation. It's weird how that works, but
yeah, it does. It's the reason for the internet. Men's able to search for search keywords, porn.
But again, coming back to the whole where we could be in 7 years with the holographic stuff and all that. The other interesting thing is how control schemes are going to change as well.
Yeah.
Microsoft's often ramped up that you are the controller.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, Kinect is not doing that very successfully. Personally speaking, I don't think they're doing that very successfully. And my experiences with Kinect, and I know quite a few other people have had similar problems with Kinect, where it's you are the controller. So if I move my arm, backwards and forwards 10 times in like 2 seconds, why does it take the Kinect about 3 minutes to register all those movements?
Think back to the press conference with Kinect, where the guy's avatar like contorted in some like whacked. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's so much to be said about like where it can go with motion control, but when you really think about it, it's like, the technique has been hands and everything up until now, but I mean, there could be stuff with head tilt and your feet, and like people buy, a steering wheel and shifter and all that other stuff. There's so many different things that are avenues that you could take.
Yeah.
I think the Move approach was good with the light ball, but then people are like, you got a big ball of light on the end of it. It's more accurate. But at the same time, is it really developed when you got to do that? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I think we'll see the two come together at some point, and as part of the technological evolution, to the point of where they'll come together to help push the technology forward, but eventually they'll still phase each other out. And we will actually have a true controller system now, where you are the move controller. And I hate to say it, as it sounds like a cliche, but it wouldn't surprise me if you had some sort of minority report kind of thing. We know Google are working on the Google Glasses system, and it wouldn't surprise me if in your interactive living room you wear a pair of glasses, which does the augmented reality stuff for you, and you have a pair of gloves that you put on as your controller and stuff to interact with the augmented reality things, and hey presto, there you go. And we've got rid of the controllers altogether. I think that would be amazing if they were able to
now,
do that.
are people gonna like that? Do you think people are gonna like losing the feel of that controller in their hand? Are they gonna want to have like a plastic gun of some sort, or?
Well, I don't know, because it would depend on the AR stuff and how much further they can push it. And as I say, if you've got a pair of gloves on and you use those gloves to interact with AR objects, if the technology gets to the point of where it's that developed, why would it be so far-fetched to have feedback so that when you touch an AR item that you can see through the Google Glasses system, and you touch it with the controller gloves, as it were,
makes you feel like you're touching it.
Yeah, and we've already seen Sony do things like Microsoft Paint and things like cooler technology where you have a controller that say you cast a fire spell in an RPG or whatever, the controller heats up so your hands feel slightly warm. Or if you
burn your fingers. Mom, I just crushed my hand in the video game. The gloves crushed my hand. I need to go to the hospital.
But you can imagine the difficulties that poses. Like, if someone casts a freeze spell and the controller goes really cold and your fingers get stuck to it or whatever. But the fact that they're even experimenting with those kinds of things wouldn't surprise me. That if they came up with a control scheme where it's gloves and glasses to make it easier of use, and you have the whole holographic AR interaction, there'd be no reason why they couldn't do real time feedback in numerous different ways, so that when you touch something it feels like you're touching something even though the object's not physically there. And again, people may be listening to this thinking you're talking stuff out of sci-fi movies here, and actually the reality is these things aren't that far off. It just needs the investment to push it on.
Well, I think these glasses, the more I learned about them, it seems like there's a lot related to eye movement and tracking your eyes. And, like, I don't know. I guess if you take it outside of that, I don't know what's the difference between VR and AR and, like, where do you draw the line and say that, if you're wearing glasses... Well, I'm saying if you're wearing glasses and that's doing the work versus just projected in the hologram from your TV, they're both really virtual reality. Do you say, well, now we have to develop these eyeglasses that are big and bulky on your head and plugged into your system, or, because when it comes down to it, it's the same kind of thing with other systems and how they cross, boundaries. The Vita, for example, if you put a forward-facing camera on there and you have a screen and, couldn't it do Skype calls and stuff like that as a main function?
It does do Skype calls.
Well, I mean, I'm saying as a main function, it's something, as a selling point, like, like the Xbox One, Skype calls. Is that something, PlayStation 3, I've used it to make 8 calls simultaneously and do that and have people on the screen and have video. I don't understand how it's innovation when you claim that it can do this now, when really if something else already did it, but it wasn't Skype, or it wasn't, it's the same thing. VR, okay, so you've got glasses, it's VR, and now you say, well, television can project it into the room, no glasses needed, but that's not VR, it's AR.
No, that would still be VR, but what I'm saying to you, it's hard to explain it, obviously VR is an immersive world, you're stuck in there, but you're sort of like, you're in a virtual reality, you're not in reality, if that makes sense. It takes you out of reality, whereas
so if it utilizes anything in the room...
Yeah, but with augmented reality, you stay in normal reality, but it produces objects that wouldn't normally exist, and you would see that through like a camera or something like that. The Vita does a very good job with that in some respects, in terms of that it does that. already. So, for example,
I guess I don't
uh,
understand the difference.
well, for example, if I'm playing my PS Vita and I've got a game like Reality Fighters, for example, which is a fighting game. So I'm fighting another opponent, but then I can turn on the augmented reality so that the back camera will then put the fighters on screen into the real world, and I'll see that through the front of the Vita, if that makes sense.
So you have to be
So
looking through something because you're not wearing the glasses. It's different then. Is what you're saying?
it is at the moment, but what I'm saying is that the next step for something like augmented reality would then to be put glasses, to put the technology into a pair of glasses, so that you would still, say you're walking down the street, for example, you're walking down a normal street, you've got a pair of glasses on that has augmented reality, you look at a billboard, you see the normal billboard, but then let's say it's got a QR code on it, which when you look at it through the augmented reality glasses, would then give you an actual video of the advert, for example. Now, if you took those glasses off, it would just look like a normal billboard, and you haven't come out of reality. But do you see what I'm saying? Augmented reality complements normal reality, whereas VR, virtual reality, takes you out of reality altogether.
Yeah, but I guess I'm saying, like, I consider VR to be AR because
No, they're two
if
different things.
if I'm wearing glasses and I'm wearing VR glasses and I can still see my living room, but then it projects my fight from my fighting game onto my right there on my carpet where I can have the battle and everything like that. It's VR, but isn't it still AR? Because now I can also see what else is going on in the room. Does that somehow
No,
differentiate? Like,
if you can
it's a
see
total
everything else,
fantasy world between I'm implementing some things from my environment with the total fantasy world. So now it has to be called something else. I guess I'm saying that all these things that it seems to me like the technologies from all these different areas, they're crossing. And they're making it so that it's almost nonsensical to give it this simple title of AR, VR, or now it works with Skype calls, and it's like, well, is that something big, Or you say, all these things. TVs doing the same thing that consoles are, and consoles doing the same thing that TVs are, smart TVs. Now you have TVs, you can get on the internet and everything else and do all that other stuff just the same as if it was a computer. Stream movies and all that other stuff. What's the difference? You say, well, it's a TV, that's the console doing it. We're moving towards an age where every single one of these devices are starting to try to do the same kind of things that other devices do.
Yeah, but
can you make a phone call on your Vita?
Via Skype, yeah.
A cell phone call?
No.
Why not?
Well,
do you think the next
Skype,
Vita will have that?
I'm surprised they didn't include it with the current Vita. I imagine they probably will. I imagine they probably will. I think part of the reason they didn't include it in the original designs for Vita was at the time that Sony were going through, were splitting up with Ericsson for their mobile phone division. And so that took a while to go through, and obviously they weren't going to wait for the Vita to come out before they, started work on that, which is why you've now seen Sony make some great handsets, but they're all now Sony handsets as opposed to Sony Ericsson ones, so they don't have to worry about the patents as much, whereas when the Vita was being designed and shown off and stuff, they would have had to worry about the patent infringement with Sony Ericsson. So it wouldn't surprise me if the next portable handheld gaming system from Sony does have cell phone capabilities in it.
So what if it was what if it came out? What if it came out as the Vita cell phone, did all the same things, and you can make calls on it and use it like a smartphone, use the glass stuff like a smartphone, the touch screen?
With the Vita, you can pretty much use it like a smartphone. The only thing that's missing is the ability to actually make outbound calls.
Well, with Skype you can make outbound calls.
Yeah, but you have to pay for credit, and you've got to have 3G connection, that kind of thing. What I'm saying to you is, the Vita does everything that a normal smartphone does, but it obviously is dedicated handheld gaming machine, so
Right,
it does
right.
more.
But if it
But if
incorporated
it
cell
had a
phones,
cell phone chip in it and was able to access cell towers instead of having to make calls over 3G and the internet, that's easy enough for them to fix with the next version of the Vita. So, don't be surprised if that happens.
what I'm saying is if I created a cell phone and it did everything that the Vita does, and maybe even it looked exactly like the Vita. I create the Vita cell phone, and it's a gaming system largely, and it still makes calls. You see what I'm saying there? Is that any different than if it was a different approach? It came from a different direction.
Well,
I make a Vita Skype cell phone.
let's get back into
Hey,
the
it's got games on it too.
Yeah, but let's get back into the thick of it. We're not thinking about technology now. We're
Right.
thinking about 7 years time.
2020.
When we talk about the differences between, this generation of gaming, you're talking about the traditional box in your home. In 7 years time, that's going to change. Now, I'm glad you said about all the Vita stuff, because it will be interesting to see how handheld gaming is going to evolve, because if the possibility of doing things with holographic television and augmented reality technology is doable with things like Google Glasses, effectively a set of gloves as a controller, your motion technology and interacting with real virtual objects, I should say, what is that actually going to mean for mobile gaming? If that was going to happen.
Well, my point mainly is, we talked about this before we got going. There's got to be some point where it's like you have no console, you have your gaming system, cell phone, portable, everything device. You come home, you set that down near your HD projection VR television, and you watch whatever movies and everything. You talk to your portable cell phone doohickey, and you say, "I want to play some games." And you load up and you stream the latest games and all that other stuff. It goes right to your TV, no wires, no nothing. And you say, well, I want to shop, and let's see the virtual inside of the store, and whatever. And then you go, and I want to listen to music, or I want to make a call. I guess I'm saying that, like, at some point, is it TVs move to that? Is it consoles move to that? Is it cell phones move to that? Is it handheld games move to that? Which one? Which one wins? Which ones merge? You feel what I'm going here? Because they're all starting to do the same kind of things.
Yes.
And it's like the TVs can't be good at games. The games can't be good at television. Where does this?
Yeah,
Microsoft doesn't make TVs.
But I think that's going way too deep into it, though, because that's assuming that essentially we're not in 7 years' time pushing a TV-less technology, where as I say, each room will be a case of interactive panels or projectors set as a setup, and you may not even have to plug wires in. So we thought about this before we came on air. And we were saying, what if everything was stored in, your cell phone? So you take your cell phone out, you can play, your cell phone's got the power of, say, a PS Vita to be able to play games, stream stuff on the go. Then you come home, and rather than, fire up your console, because at this point in time I wouldn't be surprised if all your games were digital anyway. Excuse me, sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if all your games were digital, that you could just then say to the future version of a PS Vita, connect wirelessly to my projectors, put on your gloves, your glasses, how you press it off, you go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I get the distinct feeling that in 7 years' time that pretty much everything will wirelessly connect without any issue. Your consoles will connect to your visual things without the need for HDMI, that kind of thing. I think your your handheld consoles will connect to your normal consoles and to your PC and to your projectors and your mobile phones and your headsets and your glasses wirelessly. That's a given. We know that's coming. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But it's how they're utilised, I think,
Are you thinking
important.
you think TVs are going to be out then? They're going to be projection type?
Yeah, it depends on the cost though. This is the key thing with it. If in 7 years' time they can get the technology running for things like holographics and the augmented reality technology through devices like consoles and projector kind of things without the need for the TV, where effectively one of your walls in your front room will become the TV, and you'll be able to interact with that and, be able to use 3D images and all that kind of thing. I think if they can keep the cost down, there's no reason for that not to be the start of phasing the traditional TV out. It's the next evolution.
Yeah.
Because people are probably, again, sat there laughing at me, probably thinking, this guy's nuts. 7 years TVs are going to go out the window. Well, actually, if you think about it, TV's already really changing anyway, to the point where everything's now pretty much on demand.
Yeah, but the television
and if you're able to pull it up as and when you want, via a projector image on the wall, you can then pick the TV you want as and when you want it, without all the need for some of this crap. And, getting rid of the TV would be one way to do it.
Well, they have this thing too now with the glasses, being able to sync with frames so that you can have the same television set. And this is already technology, and it's based on the 3D tech and how that works. But having like 3 different people in a room, they're all wearing a different set of glasses, looking at a TV, and the way it's showing the frames, every other frame being for a different person.
Yeah.
That they can all watch a different. They can all watch a different show at the same time on the same television.
Sony already have that technology out on the market. Do you remember the PlayStation TV that came out a little while ago?
No, I'm not really familiar with it, but I've heard a little bit.
There was I think it was 24-inch, and it was PlayStation TV. And it was designed specifically for gamers, and the idea, it was all 3D TV and stuff, and you could plug things in for, watch cable boxes, that kind of thing. But the cool thing with it is that, say you were playing split screen co-op, right? No matter, so you've got you sat on a couch together, you've got one person on the left, one person on the right. The person on the left, looking through the 3D glasses, would be able to see a full screen of their half of the split screen. So if you were looking without the 3D glasses, it would look like the screen split. But you put the 3D glasses on, and you sit on the left-hand side, and you could see the full screen of your half of the screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So your half would then become a full, and then the person on the right would have exactly the same thing. So there was no way for you to look at what the other person was doing and cheat. And yet you would both get different images depending on your angle. And so that technology is already there. It's just a case of Sony again building upon that and picking out what's successful and implementing.
See, with that kind of stuff, I don't think the television set's going to go by the wayside anytime soon. I've seen I had the opportunity before. I was looking at buying a projector system that would project HD movie quality stuff onto a blank white wall, and you could control the size and make a huge television screen on a huge blank white wall, and things like that are, they sound great, but there's a lot of things too that it can be said about. You can probably implement these other technologies easier if you actually have a television set, a set top of some type.
Yeah, but we already know that the television market isn't particularly doing well. We see smart TVs coming out, but for a lot of companies that are manufacturing tellies, it's one of Sony's biggest headaches, for example. They just can't make money on TVs.
Well, you know why?
Because
right now, the way the television is, think about how television is. You have to watch when the show comes on. You have to have cable and these other accessories and things, to satellite, whatever, to stream it. And that's why I think there's going to be a real big push right now towards internet television, streaming television. Once that kicks off...
But Sony already doing that. Why aren't they making a profit?
They're just now getting started.
No, it's been around for a while now.
They're getting set up with their 6 channels or whatever. Last I heard, they were...
Sony have had internet capabilities with Bravias from 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. I'm talking content.
They even put chips in there. Yeah, but Sony. So that. Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is, then that's different. Then because then you're talking about the TV manufacturers actually providing content.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Can you watch? You can watch television on your computer.
Mhm.
You can watch YouTube on your computer.
Mhm.
Can you turn on your TV and watch YouTube on your TV?
With the Sony Bravia Smart TV, yes. With the Samsung, yes.
Is
With the Panasonic Viera, yes.
Is that what you have? Because most people do not have. I've got limited internet connectivity on my Samsung HD big screen.
Well, you have to remember, I have a pretty cheap 3D TV, if I'm honest, but I still have an Ethernet port out onto it, so I can put an Ethernet port, I can put a cable for the route into it, and it's able to access the internet. But you know, the modern versions of that is that a lot of them do access it wirelessly. You know, so you know. You know, as School's just pointed out here, he doesn't, on his Brava, he has an Ethernet port, but it's not wireless. He can get an adapter for it, and hey presto, his TV's Wi-Fi. I'm not quite sure how old his Bravia is, but the newer Bravias and the newer Samsung Smart TVs and the newer Panasonic Vieras will have already have wireless built into them. They have a plethora of apps for things like YouTube and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and you know, that all being...
That's the point. Even with them doing that kind of things, they're still struggling. I mean, yes, Samsung have been successful in pushing smart TVs to
I'm saying don't confuse the television with getting television streamed to you from satellite or cable box or whatever. Don't confuse the television with that. What I'm saying is that technology has to develop, and there has to be resources for you to use that so that your average person's using their TV to access internet-driven television. Once that occurs and there's content enough for that, that's where that takes off.
Because what I'm saying to you is that's a snapshot of now. That's what people are already doing, and it's, you know, it's still not growing. As you know, the whole idea behind it is, you know, it's still not a particular popular idea, and on top of all that, you know, and this is why I keep coming back to the Samsung side of things. Samsung are barely making a profit on the smart TVs. Sony are not making a profit on TVs, which is why they have major losses, fiscal losses every year, and that's even with that technology implemented. They need to, you know, the TV in some respect, even with all the internet connections and stuff, and you know, the on-demand content to your TV without the box, the TV itself is still a barrier. And I think in 7 years' time we'll be talking about, you know, I think it's very realistic to say, well, the TV technology is going to go, you know, TVs are going to go out of the door in the traditional sense, because it's getting rid of that barrier and still being able to do what smart TVs are doing now, just without the actual need for a TV piece of equipment to do that, where you'd be looking at buying projectors that you can interact with already. You see it in the classrooms here with smart TVs, you know, being able to beam a projection onto, say, a whiteboard, and then you're able to interact with the wall. And press a button on the wall, and you know, it'll bring up menus and stuff like that. You can already do that, but don't forget, we're looking at this in 7 years' time and how that's going to progress. So I wouldn't necessarily dismiss the idea that, you know, getting rid of the traditional TV is a far-fetched concept, because in 7 years' time, you know, we could be looking at the start of that anyway.
I don't know.
Even with people like Sony making their own content to be streamed to TVs. It's not going to make that difference, because it's still that barrier, and that barrier's got to go out of the way to push and evolve the technology.
I don't know. I guess I got to see how you know, VR, how projection and all that other stuff's going to work, because TV has a lot of innovations coming, and I think it's you know, I guess it's just all how they're going to meld them. I think Sony's in a better spot, clearly, making TVs and phones and game systems.
Yeah.
you can't say much more about that, but. I don't know. I mean, I look forward to the day where, you know, my TV can do a lot of these things and I can watch YouTube without... Because if you think about it, you go through time, you used to could just buy a TV, you turned it on, you were getting broadcast stuff through the airwaves. It was paid for by, advertisements and stuff in it. And now you fast forward to today where, like, only until recently I was paying $264 or something a month for my cable and all this other stuff. And it's, to get HBO and Showtime and all these things, and it's like, I just started cutting them. I started cutting them because here I am, I'm paying all this money out, and, I spend more time watching movies and YouTube than I do television. Television to me it's like, I'm paying for what? To watch something that I got to watch ads and everything like that should be paying for it, and and I can't really get my YouTube content that I want to see up on my screen as easily because I don't have, super duper internet connection hooked up to a TV that's made for that. It's only partially internet enabled, and it seems to me like you hurt the TV business with it not being developed out to being free internet television and things like that are available via your laptop.
Yeah. But dude, don't forget we're looking at this from a 2020 perspective, not a snapshot of now. So don't not dare to dream big. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So don't worry about what's going on now. Let's just think of what's going on in 7 years' time. And I hate to make this reference to the Microsoft conference, but we're talking TV sports here. Let's concentrate on the games. So, that's because essentially we want to know where games are going to be in 7 years as well. That's bread and butter. That's
well, let me ask you this. This is a big one related to all of this. Keyboards, mouses. It's always been a gap stop between controllers gaming, PC gaming. PC gamers swear by the control that they have with a mouse and a keyboard. Is there an answer to that technology-wise, where you can project a keyboard or you can project a mouse, or do you think that those glove controllers will be,
I think in my dream of the future, that's not even going to be an issue, because you could then effectively say, for example, you want to play your traditional games, but in the new environment, there's no reason why you couldn't have an AR pad and use a pad, or an AR keyboard and mouse. Instead of actually having a physical object, you have a virtual object that you can interact with and do it that way. Yes, that's obviously going to present a few challenges with like the latency and stuff like that. But if you're looking at my vision of the future here, in terms of games consoles and the way media will change and how we interact with it and stuff, that wouldn't even be an issue, I don't think.
I don't know. I wonder how people enjoy using a keyboard, and how many people enjoy having something in their hands. I guess I'm having trouble getting past the whole idea of like holding a controller versus holding up a gun in a virtual reality world, because the feeling...
Well, no, you wouldn't. Well, see, this is what I'm saying to you, because you're getting confused with the VR and the AR side of things, right? Imagine, just humour me for a second. Imagine you have the glasses and you have the glove controller.
Okay.
But you stood in your front room. You can see all your objects in your front room as you normally would, but you want to play, say, the newest version of Call of Duty. So you...
Playing Call of Duty 25.
So, yeah. Call of Duty
Modern Black Ops Warfare.
So you then set it up on one wall of your front room, right?
All right.
And it's giving you a 3D image, a holographic image from that wall, so that you're getting a real sense of the atmosphere that's in front of you. So say you want to use a gun, right? You can make the gun gesture with your glove controller, and you'll have a virtual gun.
Yeah, but am I gonna feel that? Am I gonna feel that gun in my hand?
Well, that would be down to the technology put in the gloves. If it was giving you feedback in real time, then yes, you would. But it wouldn't be like you've been taken out of the front room, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I guess I'm saying like feeling something in your hand as opposed to like I'm pressing on both sides of it, and I'm not. My hands are not pressing together. Just holding something versus.
I tell you, I'm gonna have to get you stoned or something to really like get this
Maybe.
image across, because like I know I can hear it, like that you're really struggling to just imagine that, if that
Well, when
makes
it comes
sense.
to things in your
Yeah.
hands, I'm talking about the difference between, it appears that you're holding a gun in your hand, but you've got a finger gun held up, as opposed to like you've got some kind of
Yeah, but if it's
realistic
generating,
feeling block-looking thing of a gun in your hand that maybe projects that, it looks
yeah,
like a
but
gun.
yeah, but the thing is, if you're talking augmented reality, the current stage of augmented reality is you interact with augmented reality through a screen. And now there's no reason the next evolution of that isn't that the interaction with the augmented reality will start to give you feedback in real time. So as I say, there's no reason why that can't be a future possibility.
Mhm.
But as I say, if you see, it depends on how you're looking at this, because if you're looking at the current and old VR technology in comparison to, say, not having any experience with current AR technology, it's hard to visualize what I'm trying to say. But,
Okay.
I'm pretty certain that if people who have a PS Vita are listening to this will probably grasp exactly what I'm saying in terms of the AR related stuff. And so, as I say, it's not. If you imagine you're seeing the images through your glasses, that's what's creating the AR side of things, and your gloves are giving you real-time feedback. There's no physical objects there, yet you still get the physical feedback.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't surprise me if that's Sony have been Sony in particular, more than anybody, have been vocal in the investment in AR technology, which is why, while the Oculus Rift is, in 7 years' time could be one method of how, games and the way we play games evolves, and, people like Valve and stuff and ID Software are really getting on board with this. I think, when we look at the other side of the other possibilities, the vision that I would have is that things then start to become more useful in terms of your day-to-day use, because as I say, you wouldn't necessarily have to have the gloves if you had a Google Glasses type system, which when you're at home in front of your projector screens and stuff, and you've got that interaction with the game, that's great. But then you could go outside, walk down a street, you see a standard billboard, you take your glasses off, you just see a normal billboard, you put your glasses back on, and you see an interactive advertisement with a video or something, and I can see that being the next evolution, and that's really going to change the way that the games would work. And I don't think, as I said before, I don't think it's that far off, as far-fetched as people may think listening into this. And, we've got the technology, and, we're starting to see that technology really emerge. The question is, are people also thinking the same things that I'm thinking, and really going to embrace that and look at that? Because, I do think this whole kind of Minority Report kind of control scheme, and having having a virtual reality combined with normal reality works, but if you have just one not the other, it doesn't work. For me personally, I don't think that's the way to go.
I don't know. But if I gotta see ads and everything, damn it, the service better be free. It's like television used to be.
Yeah.
So you want to hear my my big epiphany?
Go
I haven't brought it up yet. So there you are in the future. You can do things in a virtual reality environment and interact with games and things like that. And we were talking about Sims. So here it is. Sim chores. So you get your kids sim chores, and then while they are virtually walking around vacuuming, there's a real vacuum, and it actually vacuums up the floor, all that kind of stuff. They can like virtually walk and pick up the trash and take it outside and all that kind of stuff. You could have like painting the house. Parents could buy different apps and stuff for it. Add to the sim chores, paint the house. And then you
But
get your
didn't
house
we have
painted.
this discussion before where we said, games can be in danger of becoming too real, that it takes away the
Well,
enjoyment
kids
of
won't
it?
care because they'll be getting their sim points and they'll upgrade their character, and it's like, oh, it's the perfect teenager. You get to play sim teenager. He did all his chores. Awesome.
I think that for me would be far too extreme. That'd take you way too far into VR. That I don't know.
You could probably find some way to make it work, though. Some kid will like, I got the high score, now my chores.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's worth pointing out in terms of the VR things. There's still a lot of research to do with the VR side of things as opposed to AR. Because, we've seen it in movies and stuff, when you see the sci-fi movies of the future and stuff, and, they've got all this VR stuff, related stuff.
Yeah, you see a lot with the grabbing the screen, like a 3D image. I love that. That would be really cool to do.
For me, but that's what you call AR as opposed to VR. VR is like being plugged into the Matrix, for example, and, the thing is, even today, because VR technology has been around for, what, 10, 15, well, probably 20 years already, and then some, but there's still not enough research into things like the psychological repercussions of it, because, as I say, you see it in sci-fi movies, whereas if you die in the virtual world, you die in the real world. Now, we know that hasn't happened with the VR technologies, but that's not to say if the VR if the VR technology improves to the point of where they're so realistic, there's still a lot of research to be done about the effects of what that would have, whereas with augmented reality, you're just complementing your real-world experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
which is why I can see them going down the route of AR as opposed to VR.
I guess to sum my thought up on that again is I was looking at possibly, AR being that you have some interactivity with something, even if it's in your normal world, that it's not changing it to a fantasy type thing, whereas virtual reality, even if you can see your normal world and you've got monsters in it, I guess that's my thought, is that I'm looking at the two differently in terms of the aspect of, is it changing something that it's a far-fetched introduction of something, or just interactivity with your environment?
We'll put it another way then. VR takes you out of your real world and puts you into a fancy world, whereas AR would be creating a fancy world in your real world environment, whereas VR takes you out of it all completely and puts you into a virtual fancy world.
Okay.
And that's why I'm saying the difference between the two is important, because with AR you're not being taken out of your real world mentality, the actual real reality. It's complementing and creating fantastic experiences within your existing world that we live and breathe in every day. VR will take you out of that altogether and put you in fantastical worlds.
So if I'm looking,
where you have no idea of what's going on in the real world.
So if I'm wearing glasses, I'm looking in my living room, and it projects a monster in there.
Yeah.
AR.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at my room and it projects the room as a cartoon world, exactly like it is, but as a cartoon world, and puts the same monster in there.
Yeah.
VR.
Yeah, kind of.
See, that's where I'm having the distinction.
It's kind of like a high
the interaction with. But I would love to have, like Iron Man 2. I don't know if have you seen that yet?
Yeah.
Where he's able to just give me a wireframe of the 1977 World's Fair, whatever, Stark Fair, and he's able to manipulate it and control that, and think about how many applications that would have across all kinds of businesses, all kinds of environments, and architects and
It'd be great for
soldiers.
Real-time strategy games. In fact, it'd be great for multiplayer games. If you can imagine a COD in 2020, where one person's using an interface like that to manage the tactics and then broadcast that out to the team.
Yeah, UAV goes over.
And then again, you put that into, you go take that one step further. You're doing that from home, but then you've got one guy who's the commander overseeing the map. It's relaying the information of the map real time and the tactics, and then you take that, as I say, you take that one step forward. How good would that be if you then put that into something like esports?
Mm-hmm.
I'd watch that on telly. That'd be amazing.
Well, I'm saying that the
I'd
application
watch
of
that on my Google Glasses TV, I should
I'm saying
say.
the application of that tech,
Yeah.
put it in a real world environment. Soldiers on the battlefield get a UAV flies over, they see where the soldiers are, and they have an image projected in front of them. They say, "Oh, they're coming around that hill right there." Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. This is what we need to do, and you get a real time feedback where you can actually watch what they're doing, and you can, I mean, the effect that has on strategy and all that.
Yeah.
Going
As
against,
opposed
especially going
to,
against someone that doesn't have that technology, you'd be talking
yeah,
about
and I think
incredible.
that would certainly claw back a lot of respect for military shooters, because then you wouldn't have, you wouldn't fire up a Call of Duty and be afraid to walk around a corner, because you never know if someone's just going to blind fire when they walk around a corner. There would be real tactics there. And your commander
Yeah,
in chief would
instantly
tell
there
you
would
there's a
have to
guy
be.
around the corner, so then you do it a bit more stealthily, and you do it like proper military, instead of just running around the corner, or diving around the corner, blind firing and hope for the best, which is usually what happens in a Call of Duty game these days. So, I think from that implementation, I think that would benefit games.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And why isn't it 2020 already? I'm kind of excited just talking about it.
Is there a point too where video games become, we talked about how like, VR and becoming harmful, too realistic. Isn't there some danger from this too in terms of that? Like if it becomes, like picture Call of Duty 25 where the blood and gore is realistic as hell. Then what? What do you do? Are you, I wouldn't feel as comfortable exposing my kids to that as I do to the cartoon-looking current version of
Yeah.
a PlayStation 3 shooter.
Yeah, but then you'd have to, as you rightly pointed out, then you'd have to, from a parent's perspective, you then
Well,
have
even
to address, that on a individual level with each kid.
I don't
Each
know.
kid.
Even as the parent, as the adult, being able to play that, is that something you're going to want to see? Is that something? I mean, where do you draw the line? Where do you say? I guess the other thing I'm wondering about is like technology gets to the point where it's trying for realism, but then realism, nobody really truly wants realism.
It's E3 2020. I don't care, because I've got to wait till November 2020 to buy the system. So.
If you do sim stuff and it's completely realistic and realism, you're not going to want to do them because then it is like doing chores. It is like
Yeah.
doing go cook and
Yeah.
there's a point I guess where certain things are like realism is they're going to need to come up with some other angle where it's going to be realistic, but then the fantasy has to be pumped up by 10 times, to make it make it worthwhile.
I don't know. Again, it comes back to this whole needing more research, and unfortunately, it's one of these things that, and until the technology is out there and tested, and and it's got to a certain point in the evolution where it needs to be regularly, routinely checked. That's I don't know. I can't answer that question. But then, having said that, would I want them to not do that?
Absolutely
To
not.
not actually put it out there in the first place.
No.
I don't know. I wouldn't want them to not do that.
Give me the tech.
But I do think they'd have to. That's something. If they are seriously looking at some of the things, some of the visions we've imagined, I'd imagine that kind of point will crop up, and that there'll have to be some way to deal with that.
Yeah. Well, it used to be like, if you were all into tech and all that, you were a quote-unquote nerd. And now it's like everyone wants to be a nerd. It's not a bad word. It's not an insult. It's like, I'm a tech nerd.
It's the new in thing.
Yeah. Tech is
the new old in thing.
It's coming back. Like
Yes.
shirts from the 60s. Bell-bottom jeans. I
don't
don't
know
know.
if I go that far.
So I don't know. I just there's a lot to think about with that. We want our tech. We want all the advances.
So
How's it going to come together?
Looking at that, I mean, just sort of thinking further. I mean, as I say, we pointed out two examples there, but I don't know if I'm really struggling to think if there's any other ways that I can see it going in a completely different direction altogether from the two ways that we've already mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm honestly thinking a tablet / Vita / cell phone / portable computer / cable box streaming television device.
Haven't we seen that with the Wii U and how epically that's failed?
It's gonna be an all-in-one. That's my feeling. You're gonna come home, you're gonna set that thing down somewhere near your TV, and it'll just connect to it, and you'll probably talk to it and probably say TV, and it'll...
Do you know what I would like to see? Because I know this is a technology that's been in the works for years. I used to work at a security company, and as part of my job, I used to have to look out for the building and stand guard at the building where they were developing some of the technology, but it was folding glass. Which is basically glass-like paper that could display images, internet stuff, and it had all the technology, but you could fold it up into like a little square and stick it in your pocket.
Yep, it's a screen and it's out, and I've seen it. I've seen the demonstrations of it. It actually works now.
Yeah, although it's still not really in a marketable place, but
Well, it is, but you can't fold it. That's the only problem. You can curl it and you can do all that stuff, but you can't. Fold it over on itself, because that does break it.
Yeah, but then as I say, you look at Sony taking something like that and then seeing how they can fit the something like the Vita hardware into that, and I think that would be a great way to progress it further. Just imagine that you take out your wallet, you unfold your bit of glass, and the sticks pop up from the screen or whatever, and hey presto, you're playing a Vita on a piece of glass that folds up, and I'll be like, whoa,
Yeah, definitely screens and keyboards are something that they want to make small, or that you can compact. Have you seen these the keyboards that fold up? Have you seen those?
Yeah.
They have keyboards that...
Have you seen the infrared ones?
That project a pad on the table and stuff like that? Yes.
Plug it via USB and it projects a keyboard down. And
but it makes me wonder, too, couldn't they just have everywhere like a little real simple keyboard inputs? Like everywhere you go, you get on the bus and there's one right there to interact with you. I don't know.
Well, I think when it comes to portable games, I think, we're going to be either looking at, as I say, the whole folding glass system, or we're going to be looking at the sixth sense technology, which is, you carry a phone with a camera in there, and, you hold your fingers up and in front of your face, and it takes a picture, and then you can display that you can project that image on any wall that you want, wherever you are in your environment, but also being able to do things like, use paper and just clip on a bit of paper, just write with your finger or whatever, and it then starts writing text on a virtual thing. You can bring it up on a Google Doc or whatever, and then throw it on a wall and see it. I think when it comes to mobile games, I think gaming systems, I think that would be another approach with it as well, with the whole sixth sense system that's currently in development.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about it before. I think I mentioned it before. That guy, Ted Talks one with Shivi Patel or something like that, and he was on about using mouse rollers and stuff attached to his fingers and stuff, and he was able to do so much stuff with the sixth sense technology. And I think I even did it on a blog recap where I posted the video at the end of it, and I think that would be another route, certainly for the combination between mobile phone and dedicated gaming handhelds. I think that would be definitely a route for it, and I can actually see that kind of thing happening in 7 or 8 years time. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I don't know, lots to think about, because it's definitely a juncture point right now, because
we're looking at
lots going to come out of this.
But we're looking at the visions of grandeur of where we'd be in 7 years. But I suppose the one important question is, if we're looking at E3 2020, who do we think's even still going to be around? Do we think there's still going to be an E3 in 7 years' time? And do you think people like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo are even going to be in the arena in terms of still making games consoles or still developing the games industry? Or do you think some of them may bow out?
What's scary to me is all the popularity of phone games and how they can have mini transactions and make a lot of money, and what that does, that it could threaten actual serious game developers. Because if there's a multitude of all these free games and that takes everyone's attention, it comes from the phone market, and people are focused on that, and they're not really introduced to what a hardcore gamer enjoys, and those two clash and they run together, and you have a cell phone console. It's like, well, you can buy this game, or you can play this multitude of tens of thousands of lower resolution phone game whatevers that are entertaining and free. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'd
I'm
be a little
still
bit
very
afraid of
much.
what would happen to serious game developing companies if they don't, work that interactivity in a lot better when the time
Yeah, but
comes.
I think games developers have actually cottoned on to this bit. Some of them have said, it's nothing to worry about in terms of it because, and this is what I'm saying about, in 7 years' time, are we still going to see the typical Microsofts, the typical Sonys, or the typical Nintendos? I think we will still see them in 7 years' time. I think they'll be still doing their things. But I think, and I've said this before, and I agree with a lot what some of the development community is. What you will see is a second tier of gaming, if that makes sense. So you'll have the big boys doing their thing, and that'll be the one that has the market share. But underneath that, you'll have the second tier, which is where you'll have things like the Steam Box, PCs, you'll have the mobile platform games, and you have the smaller, cheaper devices like the what's it called, the Ouya. You'll have those kind of $100 systems that provide small bite-sized type mobile type games either on console at home or on the mobile phone. And that'll be the lower tier, if that makes sense. So they'll have their own kind of unique marketplace, but they won't be, in a position. I think, it's safe to say that even with them being rising in popularity, they're not going to dominate the market as, some people are quite fearful of. You are going to have this two-tier system where, you'll have your main console or your main console manufacturer, however that's going to develop in 7 years' time, and then you'll have the things that complement that, such as the cheaper systems that do the $1 games and stuff like that.
Well, I guess
So
you look at Facebook and look at Farmville and go look up what that company's worth at some point, and just, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's just simply exposure through Facebook. It's not anything that game is just so, wow, the graphics on Farmville is just killer, and it's not anything like that. It's that's what I'm talking about. It's just, if a company becomes, like Facebook is just so popular that the fact that it serves up Farmville and the way that they do it, it's just, you couldn't do that in any other environment.
I don't know. I think you can. I genuinely believe
Not
you
without
can.
a lot more work and a lot more expense for the end consumer.
Well, no, I think
Which one made more money, Farmville or Call of Duty? Which one made more money for the developer?
Well, I think that's an obvious answer, isn't it? Farmville, but I guess the point is that we're already seeing a lot of these things transition over with things like Jetpack Joyride, which are free-to-play games, and then you buy the the microtransactions, and that isn't costing the developer a lot of money to be able to do that. It's just attracting the Facebook audience to drop $300 down on a system to actually then know they can get those type of games. And from Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo's kind of perspective, they've got to work hard to build those libraries, but they should be doing that anyway. And then obviously, I don't think it necessarily matters where you access the Facebook platform from, but from Sony's perspective, they want you to be able to access that kind of content, drop the $300 on the system, and then sell you the bigger budget titles. And that, I think it's going to go that way, as opposed to, Facebook trying to get AAA games on, through a web browser, because we've seen that's already not proving a very successful way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So from Sony, Microsoft's, and Nintendo's perspective, they've got the upper hand on that slightly, because they're building the infrastructure still. Whereas if Farmville's subscriptions or microtransactions reduce in money, they've got to think of what the next big game's going to be, as opposed to and they're kind of stuck with how they can push it and evolve it forward, because they're stuck to that Facebook platform. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's gonna you'll find the balance tipping the other way towards the console manufacturers as opposed to places like Facebook and stuff like that.
Okay. All right.
But so again, I'll put this question to you: 2020, do you think we'll still see Microsoft in the games industry, or do you think they'll push into other areas that we're already starting to see with things like the Xbox One?
I think that they'll declare that it's not a gaming console on the next one completely, and it'll be a entertainment center,
ultimate media hub.
Yeah, media hub of some sort. Exactly.
The weird thing is they've already tried that once and it failed, so it'd be interesting to see how it works when they try with a brand name like the Xbox.
Yeah, the Xbox One they tried back in 2013. Yeah, I remember that. It was a big failure. We mentioned this a little bit too when we were talking before the broadcast, but I would love to see like Apple or somebody like that jump in too, and the more the merrier. I would. Competition breeds innovation, which breeds lower prices, which breeds better technology for everyone.
Let me put it this way: if Apple take the jump, the massive leap in, do you really think that innovation and cheaper pricing is even going to come into the equation if Apple take the dive?
Well, I would think that maybe they
have a
different way of doing things the way the PC architecture is. That's the cool thing, is you think about how Mac, they just completely tried to reinvent operating systems and all that. So, I mean, it would be good to maybe see that. Maybe that if that came to a console, you'd have developers like, wow, there's an easier way instead of using PC architecture and Windows-based.
I'm not disagreeing with what you say there in terms of Apple. They do innovate, but the problem is they innovate and then they milk for 6 years before they innovate again. And then you take into account the proprietary, you've got to buy the Apple products to work with other Apple products. And, I genuinely believe if Apple jump into the games industry by 2020, I don't think they'll have changed their company ethos at that point. I think they'll still be banging out the proprietary, if you buy an Apple product, if you buy an iPhone, for example, still in the year 2020 or whichever, technological improvements it has, it will still need to, if you want to run it with a Bluetooth headset, you'll still need to buy an Apple Bluetooth headset, or if you want to connect it to your TV, at that point you're going to have to buy an Apple TV or something like that. And I don't know, I don't think that would be the way to go forward, which is why I'm kind of glad Apple is still staying out of the games industry a little bit at the moment.
Well, I don't know. I mean, are we not moving towards an app add-on microtrans world anyway?
It's all about the apps.
It's all about the microtransactions. It's all about the apps and the add-ons and the upgrades and the added modules. And
we're not going to have another 40-minute rant on bloody microtransactions again, because I'm sure
never heard of them. Microtransactions? Yeah. Never heard of them. What are you talking about? No, I'm waiting for 2020. I want my SimChores app to be awesome. It's that simple.
You're going to start development on that then?
I am. I call it right now. I'm going to trademark that or something. Wait, can I do that? SimChores?
Yeah.
I got to get all the apps for my children, though, that's for sure.
You need to get that into the patent office pretty quick. If someone's listening to this now live, be like, son of a gun, that's $1 million idea.
SimChores. They'll announce it tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Nintendo will call a special press conference or something. It'll be exclusive to Wii U.
Microsoft will add it to their E3 press conference.
And then nobody will buy it. It'll be like, we had this really great idea for SimChores. And then we put it on a system that no one's buying and nobody cares about. So.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think from what we've seen in terms of PS4 and Xbox One, I mean, even though, in terms of the Xbox One being kind of missing the point of it, and the lukewarm reception it's received, I still think I think this next generation is certainly going to see some interesting innovations. I'm kind of excited to see it get going, because the sooner they start pushing those new consoles out, new innovations, the sooner we can start dreaming about the even bigger, innovations and revolutions that will come after. And I think, that's kind of why we wanted to do, sort of what if in the year 2020 show, because, we're already starting to dream big, but, with actually having physical objects like PS4 and Xbox One in our hand by the end of this year, we can start to begin to actually really get our heads around about where it's all going to be going. And I think, that's what makes it such an exciting year for gaming. We always say that whenever a new console comes out, whether it be handheld or, a home console, it's always an exciting year. But, this year truly is going to be something special to embrace, because this is going to be the next step, as opposed to just being a stopgap in between stuff. At least that's how I feel with it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're not excited, no?
My head's spinning about the possibilities, and it's also kind of...
Yeah, I was going to say, you're still trying to get used to the AR, VR thing, aren't you?
Well, it's hard to get you know what I'm saying. It's just hard to get your head around all of it when you put it all together, because you can't just say, not just one area is advancing. They're all advancing, and they're advancing towards each other as they're advancing forward. So,
Sony, if you advance forward to making me have to have a camera constantly plugged in, and you're going to sell me TV, you can do one right now.
TV.
You're sincerely Sony fan. That's what I would do. If they started doing that, man, I'd be...
What an advantage, though, right? I mean, making cell phones and TVs and gaming consoles, and you're into producing movies, and you're into producing television, and you're...
Well, I've often
I'd definitely buy Sony stock before I'd buy Microsoft stock.
Well, you can get it on the cheap now, so... but anyway, no, but I've often said, I do think in terms of technology-wise, I think, the companies that are really going to succeed are the ones that are able to provide full device convergence. And when you look at, in terms of what Microsoft do, they're a software company. They're bread and butter software, and they don't know too much about hardware. I think it's safe to say, or the hardware that they've done in the past hasn't been well received, so it's harder for them. Whereas with Sony, that all they need to do is essentially is buy up a software company, integrate it into the business, and then they can really pull off that device convergence. And I certainly think under the stewardship of someone like Kaz Hirai, who's come from the PlayStation brand and worked his way to the top CEO position, I kind of understand that he's seen the vision of what Howard Stringer had for Sony in terms of this device convergence, and Kaz Hirai is going to be probably the first guy to really start pushing that with a company like Sony, because as I say, as you say, Katie, there's very few companies that have their hands in so many pies that they can actually pull something like off. And I still maintain that if any company can do it, Sony are going to be the one to really pull the device convergence.
Yeah.
Because I still think Samsung are a way off of doing that, even though that a lot of Samsung products are, extremely popular, extremely high quality for the price they are. But, essentially, I think with a company like Samsung, for example, who are the only other company that can really see besides Sony pulling that off, they're going to hit that glass ceiling at some point, because there's still areas they're not involved with. Like you say, the TV, the movie, the content production, and then obviously things like the games consoles and stuff like that. Samsung is still far away from doing things like that. So.
Yeah, even the Blu-ray player. Yeah,
Samsung make Blu-ray players. What are you on about?
Yeah, everybody's using Sony's technology.
I
was thinking Microsoft though when you were saying that, like companies not having, these other resources, they have to.
You've got to imagine that there are a few companies that produce Blu-ray drives. Just to clarify this for anybody that's wondering, Sony are actually one of the founders of what's called the Blu-ray Association. When someone makes a Blu-ray technology or wants to put Blu-ray technology in their devices, they actually have to pay a license fee, and that goes to everybody within the Blu-ray Association, so it's divvied out. Yeah. So you've got Panasonic, Philips, Sony, Samsung, and a couple of other companies that were all involved with that Blu-ray association. So, by Microsoft putting in a Blu-ray drive into the Xbox One, Sony will inevitably get royalties down the line as part of being in the Blu-ray association. But Microsoft have held back off Blu-ray as long as they can, because it's not just about paying Sony a fee, but it's quite expensive to have to pay for that technology, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Especially when you're not in the club, and that's what I'm saying. Microsoft don't really make their own hardware, so how can they be part of the founders of the Blu-ray Association? If they dropped the whole HD DVD thing and signed up, they could have had Blu-ray drives into the 360 and the new Xbox One without having to pay all that license fee, and they kind of missed their chance really, and it's now going to cost them in the long run lots and lots of money.
Billions.
So if anybody was questioning that, hopefully that clarifies it for people like yourself.
Cool. Good discussion today.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for joining us for year 2020.
Yeah.
And we're still waiting for E3 to come out in 2020.
It's only 2 weeks away.
Yeah. So.
No. One thing I've gleaned from all this is I definitely would love a time machine just to glimpse where it could go.
Well, I know they don't exist in my time, because first thing I would have done was go back and tell myself and make contact with myself now so that I could do that. I'd there I would be in 1975 or whatever when I first played the Atari. I would be like, this guy from the future would show up. They would look a lot like me. Older, but gray beard, chubby, and he'd be, "Here's your PS4, son." Wow, thanks. What is this?
I see.
You'll need these games.
Cheat the future. Is that what you want to do?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If there's a time machine, that would be the first thing that I would do. Get my hands on it, as I'd go back in time and give myself some tech.
I just like a nice little sneak peek in what's to come. That would be nice.
Then I could do buy Microsoft, buy Google stock, buy all that. Sell Microsoft stock in 2012.
The big Microsoft crash of 2017. Gotta admit it'd be fun. But yeah, for the time being, I'm happy to just be a dreamer.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
No, that's pretty much it. I'm kind of intrigued what people have to say. I should probably point this out at the end of the podcast. We have stopped doing the recaps on the website for the time being. If enough people message me, I'm more than happy to keep doing the recaps, but it just doesn't warrant the time and effort at the moment, because that time and effort can be put into improving other areas. If people want to see it back, PM me. I'm going to run a poll at some point this week as well. But, if you do still want to have a conversation about, anything you've heard on the show, everybody has a YouTube account these days. So log on to the YouTube channel and, post comments on underneath the video, because we'll still get them and we're still able to have dialogue across the YouTube video as well. So, you can use that as an outlet for the time being. And then, as I say, if people really do want to see the recaps come back, then, enough people message me and enough people vote in polls, then, I'll get back to doing that. But for the time being, it's on hiatus. It's not saying it's not coming back, but you need to want it, if that makes sense. So...
Yeah, and then even though we got a lot of people with a lot of stuff going on, just post in the forums. Find a few topics that you like, keep them up. Let's keep that activity going. We're starting to get a lot of new people visiting, and it's it's one of those things I'd like to see the staff more involved with, talking with members and stuff. Because the reality is, lately we've had a lot of posts, just a ton of posts, but they're in the staff forums where members can't see them, and we're I don't know.
Yeah, so, don't forget the staff coffee lounge is only there to grab your coffee and get back to work.
Yeah.
Sure, I probably shouldn't say that, actually.
Stay active. Yeah.
You're watching, going to get messages now. Why are you telling us we can only go in there for a coffee? You get. I hate you, blah, 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 blah.
Definitely.
But,
All right.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's one of those weekends where we think about our soldiers and everything, so shout out to them. Thank you for all your service and your hard work defending both of our countries around the world. And,
Just because you're out of sight, you're never out of mind.
Exactly. So, and thank you to everyone listening. Thank you for joining us, and we should be back. Again, we should be seeing a Trophy Lounge podcast this week, one way or t'other. Hopefully we'll see Daryl back. And then next week, look for us again on Sunday for Trophies on PSN's PodStation. So
Amen.
Until then, have a great day, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Play us out, KD, with the music.
You know it.